We are giving you updated Dynasty running back rankings on today's show. With all the chaos of free agency, we wanted you to see how our rankings currently look with some big names who have signed to some interesting contracts, intriguing contracts. Do us a favor, drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to comment down below right now who is an unsigned free agent that you think is going to disrupt. Could be from any position, okay? So, Badaki, we're going to do 5 tiers. Now, if people want to find my individual rankings, your individual rankings, the guys over at Flock Fantasy, Stock Exchange, In-Game, if they want to find all of our rankings, go to flockfantasy.com/land. Sign up using our code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off your membership. And there's articles there, a bunch of exclusives. You're going to love it. It's the best thing we've ever put out.
That's right.
Let's go ahead and start. We're going to do player by player. I want you guys also to comment down below right now. Yeah. What do you prefer? Do you want us to go tier by tier? Do you like player by player? Does it keep you on your toes? We genuinely want to know what you guys prefer for these tier videos. But we're going to try a player by player version here today, and we'll see how we go. Okay, Badaki, Dameon Pierce. What tier do you have Dameon Pierce in of these 5? By the way, this is our top 24. We're trying to stay strict to that 24 number. So some really good running backs might miss out, but top 24, where do you have Dameon Pierce ranked here?
Yeah, top 24. He's in my tier 4. I have Dameon Pierce. Okay. And breaking news, if you guys watch, I mean, you're probably watching this later, you already know, Devin Singletary did sign there, so maybe we can kind of talk about that a little bit. 1-year deal. I don't think this necessarily hurts Dameon Pierce, nor does it devalue him, in my personal opinion. They can still draft another running back, but it kind of feels like they could be going a different route in the running back room by signing Devin Singletary, but who knows? Right now, he is in my tier 4 currently.
Okay, he's in my tier 5, so we'll have to discuss that.
That's fine.
At a later time. He is in my tier 5. Singletary, to me, the 1 year, $3.5 million, that doesn't me signify anything. I still don't think that they're exempt from drafting a running back, you know? So for my personal opinion, Singletary is like, okay, it's competition, but it doesn't mean that they're done. That's just how I view it. And I think what's happening right now is we're seeing all these running backs land in free agency, and we're starting to say, oh, these guys are safe. Oh, this guy's probably safe. This guy's probably safe. And we have like 10 running backs that we think can disrupt in the draft. So I'm still very cautious, but yeah, I guess you can make the case that it's good for Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, and he was here, by the way, guys, before the Devin Singletary signing. So I didn't move him up or down. He's always been here in this tier 4 for me.
Yeah, he's in my tier 5. We'll have to talk about that later. Jonathan Taylor, I have in my tier 1.
Yep.
I'm assuming you do as well.
That's pretty easy.
We still believe in Jonathan Taylor. You know, the last season was really just riddled with injuries and a poor offense. One of the worst offenses in the NFL. Just completely broke down, but new coaching staff, probably a new quarterback. And I think Jonathan Taylor will have a bounce back year here in 2023. Don't devalue him. This is the same player that some of you guys, which we advise not to, some of you guys were sending multiple 3 first-round picks plus players for.
Yes.
So don't devalue him now that it's rough. All right, Austin Eckler. What do you have Austin Eckler here?
I have Austin Eckler in my tier 3.
Same. Okay. We're on the same page there. Difficult player to
kind of
evaluate right now.
Yeah.
I personally feel, which I've said on stream, that if he leaves the Chargers, I don't think his value is going to remain the same. That offense is completely built around him, and the amount of work that he gets through the air, because Eckler does not, he gets touchdowns on the ground, but he is not an efficient runner. His damage for fantasy comes through the air. If he leaves that system, new quarterback, new weapons around him, new identity for an offense potentially, that could be damaging for his 100%. Fantasy value.
I completely agree, and this is why he's here in tier 3. I'm pretty sure before the season, coming into the season, he might have been in some people's tier 2 in the top 10, top 12, but you kind of see him falling here in the community. 127 targets this past year. That could potentially change if he does go to a new team.
I would argue that even if he stays, that's not going to stay the same. Like, like there
Yeah,
has to be some sort of
completely
regression
agree.
to the mean.
Completely
And
agree.
you kind of called that out early in the offseason. You were off Eckler early in the offseason, so props to you. I mean, we don't know. Like, he could still be RB1 this year. But
exactly. But he's on his last year of his contract, 27
Yeah.
years old. These Chargers, positional players in the fantasy world, they're getting older, and they're going to start to need to get some younger pieces. And maybe Austin Eckler is one of those guys that's going to walk right now.
Okay, Christian McCaffrey. This could be controversial because there's a lot of people out there who will say, you're hating too much. I have him tier 2. I'm not going to argue with people out there if they have him tier 1.
Right.
But I do have him tier 2. Yes, it's lame, but it's the age. Like, we're getting up to that 27 mark. Now, we don't want to think too far ahead in Dynasty, but with McCaffrey's history of injuries and being in San Francisco, I just don't. I love it when he's healthy, but I have this feeling that there will be some sort of injury. I don't wish that upon him at all. Like, I want to be completely straight about that, but I just feel like with the age, he's one of those players like Travis Kelce. You ride or die it. You probably don't get proper value if you trade him, but I can't put him with those elite guys at the top, at tier 1 in Dynasty. In redraft, he's probably the first pick, but yeah, it's just trying to get ahead of the curve, and I think that's what some people struggle with Dynasty rankings. Like, what do you mean this guy was just here, or Derrick Henry should be here, or whatever? It's like, we're not redraft ranking, right? We are ranking for Dynasty. We are projecting for the future, not what's happened. So, where do you have him?
I would completely agree. I do have him here in tier 2. And I know just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, they're going to... He goes to a better team with the 49ers, a better run offense, a better offensive line, all these other things that can really help Chris McCaffrey's argument of being into this tier 1. But like Zach said, 26, nearly 27 years old, you're going to start seeing the decline here. He is my first running back in this tier 2. If that gives anyone more, a sense of peace, So, and I think... I'm not saying that Elijah Mitchell... By the
way, he's going to be 27 soon. He's already 26. He'll be 27 soon.
Not saying that...
that's like the age that like he's going to die or anything, just to clarify.
Not saying that Elijah Mitchell is going to take touches, but I think we saw when Elijah Mitchell did come back that he was being utilized. Maybe they don't want to run CMC to the ground and they want to get as much as out of him as possible. Not saying, once again, he's not going to be a top guy. Just think that he may not... He now finally has competition. And that sounds crazy to say.
If you can move CMC for any of the guys that we're about to have in tier 1, we would do it right now preemptively.
100%.
Before anything happens.
100%.
Okay, cool. So we talked a little bit before the stream, and I have one Cook in here. You don't have the other. I have Dalvin Cook at the end of my tier 5. So I tried to stay as close to top 24 in my rankings. He is my 24. You don't have him ranked, I don't believe. I'll put Dalvin here. He, to me, is one of these veteran running backs who, I don't think he's the same player that he was, but if he stays with Minnesota or if he goes somewhere else, I think he's going to be a really good value. Some people are paying premium for these running backs who are older, who are aging, who have injury history, and they're paying, 3rd, 4th round startup price where you can get Dalvin so late. So I still am skeptical, but the price on Dalvin is I think a 10th, 11th round pick in startup drafts right now. So I like his value based off of where you have to get him or, the market. So I'll put him there in tier 5 as my RB24. And why don't we go ahead and talk about James Cook? I don't have James Cook in my top 24. You do. So do you want to advocate for him then?
Yeah. So before I go into James Cook, I do have Dalvin as my RB25, Dalvin Cook as my RB25, so he's just outside of this. And I think this could fluctuate just depending on how these young running backs are going to get and where their draft capital is going to be. That's what I would say with Dalvin. So he can definitely go into my top 24. Now, with James Cook, I feel a little bit more comfortable about where in my eyes, his projection is going to be. He's a pass-catching guy. We saw the uptick in productions. You saw Devin Singletary just get signed to a new team. Are they going to get somebody out in free agency? There has been talks of this team getting, Zeke, but that doesn't necessarily scare me because if anything, we saw what Tony Pollard has done with Zeke, right? And I really like James Cook. I always projected him to be this guy that was going to be a disruptor in the backfield, a pass catching back, even a 1-2 down guy. All three are all down guy. That's why I would say to put it more in better terms. So I like James Cook. He is in my tier 5. So this just feels really comfortable for me.
So James Cook is my RB28, right around RB28, 29. I've been off James Cook pretty much since day one. Yep. I will say I was impressed with the late season run, but I'm not convinced that it's just Zeke or it's just it could be Dalvin. I think it could also be Bijan Robinson. I think it could also be Zach Charbonnet. Agreed. Or one of these really good running backs in the class. I would be shocked if this is the running back room that they start the year with. I
would agree there.
If they start the year and James Cook is the clear one, I will definitely be moving him up my rankings for sure.
Agreed. With James Cook, I guess just to close on that, I'm not necessarily scared if Dalvin, Zeke, or any of these running backs do go to the Bills. I'm more scared of the Charbonnets, the Tuckers, the Bijans, these guys, these younger guys coming in and taking it. And that's how I'm picturing. But anyone else, I'm not necessarily worried. But I could be wrong.
Okay, a player that I have been warning people about for a couple months now. I have just been very skeptical myself of if it will ever happen for this player. Uber talented, cannot stay healthy with a full workload. That is DeAndre Swift. I have him in tier 4. We'll talk about this. We all want DeAndre Swift to be a fantasy superstar, but the Lions don't care. The same way that the Commanders didn't care that you wanted Antonio Gibson to be a superstar. And the offense was mega successful with Swift in a minimized role. So typically you want your star running back when they're out and injured, your offense, you want it to struggle a little bit to indicate, that guy's critical to us. That's not what happened. That offense was humming. It was doing incredible with Jamal Williams as the feature back. And DeAndre Swift, while he was very efficient with the touches that he got, I don't believe that he's going to be the workhorse there, especially after signing David Montgomery to a 3-year deal. So I would have him here in tier 4. I've been skeptical for a while. He's my RB20 right now, and maybe I'm too low on him, but I don't see the commitment from the team. I don't think that they're going to commit to him after this year, and it's very rare that a running back goes into free agency like DeAndre Swift and then becomes a workhorse somewhere else. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I also think that you look at the NFL, the landscape of the NFL, the contracts that these running backs are getting. What's the percentage chance that DeAndre Swift is a 15 to 20 touch guy, 20 touch a game running back? I think it's quite low. And when you look at the amount of games that he has started, it's like below, I think 40% or something since he's entered the NFL. So I think the Dynasty community holds him in this light because he is so talented. But I think the Lions are like, we don't care. We win this way. So I have him here in tier 4. I would actually have him ahead of Dameon Pierce, but where do you have him?
I have him at the end of my tier 3. So he's my last running back in my tier 3. And, I think we both see DeAndre Swift in a different light. And I think I'm viewing him the way I'm assuming the Lions are viewing him. And I was on the train where, DeAndre Swift is still very talented. He can be an all-down guy. But I don't think that is where he is going to be taking. I don't think that's where he's going to get most of his fantasy production anymore. I think he's going to be more of a third down guy, a pass catching guy. And I think that will be a lot easier for DeAndre Swift to stay healthy going into and playing a good full 17 games, right, in 2023. So I have him in tier 3. I am projecting the way the Lions are going to be utilizing him. And if he does become this third down pass catching threat, I think he is going to be somebody as successful.
Okay.
As successful as like the younger Austin Eckler. Like right when Austin Eckler kind of popped off, right? he wasn't necessarily getting, with Melvin there, he wasn't necessarily getting all the work on the ground, but he was getting all the work in the air. And maybe that's too high of a praise for DeAndre Swift at that young Austin Eckler moment.
I just think it's difficult because those situations are flipped around. Eckler lost a workhorse in that backfield in Melvin Gordon, and DeAndre Swift just gained competition.
No, for sure. And I think that's why I think when Eckler went into that third down role, it felt a little bit more comfortable, even though it was frustrating as Eckler was growing. So maybe it's a bad comparison, but that's how I'm picturing it in my mind.
Yeah.
But that's how I'm projecting DeAndre Swift, that he's not going to be a 1, 2, 3 back. He's going to be the third down guy. That's going to be a pass catching, and he's going to be a threat. He probably sees 5 to 8 to 9 targets per game in the air, not on the ground.
What? 8 to 9 targets a game?
No, 5 to 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
just in the air. Just in the air. I mean, we saw him. Like, what? Not this year. I'm pretty sure last year in 2021 or 2 years now, he was averaging like nearly six targets per 6 targets per game.
I think last thing I'll say. Okay, we agree to disagree. He's at the back end of my tier 4, so I actually have 5 players ahead of him. 4 players ahead of him. I'd be happy to leave him here at the beginning of tier 4. You have Dameon Pierce in 5, so I'm kind of meeting you here in the middle.
I'm
the last thing that I will say is I think, and I'm not saying you, Badaki, but it's just my personal belief as someone who was so strong on Antonio Gibson. I just don't think the team cares about DeAndre Swift getting the usage that we want for fantasy. And also, this team is, when DeAndre Swift was being projected to be this top 5 dominant dynasty running back, the team was built around him. That's not the case anymore. This team is built around Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, and a bruising running back. And hopefully Jameson Williams is going to get involved there. I just think DeAndre Swift is no longer like the focal point. And if he's going to be this third down running back, I mean, it just has to be the perfect situation, like a Jerick McKinnon. There's a lot of third down running backs out there who don't get fantasy points. So I'm more skeptical than the average person. I have him as my RB20. Where do you have him?
I have him as my RB. I just literally just closed it. It was RB16.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave him there. And let's see. I could be wrong, but I think I'm officially out unless the price adjusts in the community.
Yeah. I mean, according to the community, by the way, just so you know, RB18, DeAndre Swift. So he has fallen clearly in the past couple of weeks since that Monty signing. He was as high as RB in the offseason in February. He was RB10. February 25th of this year, he was RB10, just I guess under a month, over a month now. Now he's all the way down to RB18.
So why don't we talk about the guy who came in and signed a contract with Detroit and David Montgomery? To me, it's an upgrade over Jamal Williams, and I think he will play that same role. I don't know where you stand, but I prefer David Montgomery over DeAndre Swift. One person has a 3-year contract on, in my opinion, what's going to be a top 5 to 6 to 7 offense in the NFL, not only this year, but for the next couple of years as Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra emerge as what I believe to be one of the top 10 duos in the NFL. Maybe they grab a Michael Mayer, who knows? But I personally would prefer right now, today, David Montgomery over DeAndre Swift. So I think people are really undervaluing Monty personally. 4 years in the NFL. Every year he's been top 24 in fantasy or better. Yep. Every year he's gone over 1,000 all-purpose yards. He's been in an atrocious offense with one of the worst offensive lines. Now I think he gets to show his true self. One of the best players as far as making room for themselves, breaking tackles and extending plays. I think he's going to thrive in Detroit. And I have them ranked back-to-back in my rankings, but I do personally prefer David Montgomery with the long-term commitment from the team. We've already heard rumors that they're not going to commit to Swift long-term. Who knows if that's possible or if that's incorrect. But I have Monty ahead. Where do you have him?
I have Monty in my tier 4. So I do have Swift ahead. Monty is just one tier down, which is actually one tier down in my eyes, which is the same tier for you, as you can see on your screen. So I am close with Monty and DeAndre Swift. I just still prefer Swifty, but maybe it does change as we get closer into the season. Or maybe I'm just still a believer in DeAndre Swift.
Let's agree on one thing. Dave Montgomery is an upgrade from Jamal Williams,
100%. And I completely agree.
That's what worries me.
Yeah,
he's a better pass catcher too.
I completely agree of Monty. You know, I was a big Monty believer. I was a Monty believer coming into the 2022 season. I was saying that if he comes in, he can potentially be a top 10 running back. He gets injured, all those things that hindered him from being a guy. So I'm not an anti-David Montgomery guy.
Sure.
I'm not saying that I don't believe that he's going to get a workload here. I just think that this offense is going to be exactly what it was last year, and that was Jamal Williams. It was like a 50-50 workload, right? So, and it just all depends on who's going to be healthy, right? If DeAndre Swift is healthy for all 17 games, does he finish higher than Jamal Williams this past year? I would say potentially, or maybe not. And I think it could be the same thing for this year going into 2022 with DeAndre Swift and Monty. If DeAndre Swift plays all 17 games, can he finish higher than Monty? I would say he probably could. But at the same time, I can see the other way around where Monty can finish higher than DeAndre Swift as well. So
I would put a bet today if I could, if both of those guys stay healthy, that Montgomery is the one that you want in redraft.
Right.
And
I would agree, especially with the long
Dynasty then.
I would say in redraft, I would agree. In Dynasty, it's also very difficult because, once again, I guess I'm a DeAndre Swift believer. But I believe that I agree with you. I agree with you that this team is investing in David Montgomery longer because of that contract, right? 100%. Mm-hmm. But I also still believe when DeAndre Swift does leave, if that is the case, he is going to go to a really good spot where he's going to get a workload. And I just believe in Swifty in that way. Only 24 years old. Going to be 25 at the end of next year. So let's see what happens.
Totally. Well, we might just see Swift a little bit differently. I found it hard to let go a couple months ago, but I think once I was just like, all right, I gotta move on from this ever being a reality of him being like this elite option. I don't love you anymore.
Yeah. What is it? Airbud? Like, leave.
Don't love you anymore. Okay. Let's move on. Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, I still have him in this tier 2 with CMC. Exactly. I still have compared him to a young DeAndre Swift. If Jahmyr Gibbs is able to stay healthy through his first rookie contract, I think he can be what we hoped DeAndre Swift was. And let's see what kind of draft capital he gets. I assume you're the same here.
Yeah, I'm the same tier 2.
All right, Breece Hall, I would have in my tier 1. Agreed. I would have him right ahead of Jonathan Taylor.
Agreed. I have Jonathan Taylor ahead of Breece Hall. But yes, he is my tier 1. Pick your poison there on the top of the tier there. Jonathan Taylor and all these other guys we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah. I think just quickly to advocate for Breece over JT, I think the offensive line is massively underrated in New York. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play a huge part in that offense.
If he even goes there. That's how I'm feeling right
now. If Breece Hall didn't have any injury concern, I think we would all be Breece over JT, right? So
yeah,
I just think that the ACL is what's holding people back, but I understand why people would feel that way.
Yeah.
All right, Josh Jacobs, I have in this tier 2 behind Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, I have him there as well.
I wouldn't be shocked if Jacobs is, man, he was so damn good last year, and not only like for fantasy, statistically, but also analytically. I was looking at PFF the other day, and I mean, this guy he's just different this year. And if we get that same version next year, I don't see how he doesn't get a contract when Montgomery and Miles Sanders are getting deals. So
I agree there. And one thing that's holding me back on Jacobs to really fully commit, even though he had an amazing season, is this was the first year where he played every single game. And yeah, he probably missed 1 or 2 games, which is not a massive deal, just like any other running back. But this was the first time where we saw him not leave a game midway. You know, we saw him play all 17 games, and he gave it fully. 340 attempts on the ground, over 1,600 yards. I mean, he did his thing this year for sure. Can he do it again? Can he stay healthy for 2 years straight and play 17 games? Probably not, but I still see him as a top 10 guy.
Sure. Okay, I've had to come to terms with this next running back. I don't think that you could point to a single person. I mean, when this player was coming in, we weren't really in the scene as far as like we were still working to do what we're doing now, but no one really knew us. Not that we were huge now, but
right.
You remember back to this draft with Javonte Williams. I was obsessed with him, as I know that you liked him as well, but I had this heart pull, on my heartstrings for this player because watching his film, it's hard not to be impressed. And he just oozes confidence. He is one of the best players at forcing missed tackles. Just the definition of a workhorse. Unfortunately, that injury has made me reassess. I have him in my tier 4, Javonte Williams.
Yes.
And the difficult part about this is all the reports that we've heard about the injury. Now, we are not doctors. We don't know. But all signs indicate towards this being a messy injury, similar to J.K. Dobbins. And I'm just thinking to myself, if this is a similar injury to J.K. Dobbins last year was probably overvalued in Dynasty. And now I think his value has come back down to an even medium. I want to maybe be ahead of the curve of getting to August and camp and getting to preseason and them saying, well, Javonte's probably going to start week 3. Well, he's probably going to start week 5. And will he be the same player? Because we know for damn sure J.K. Dobbins wasn't the same player. So as much as it destroys me, like mentally to not have him higher, this is where I have him tier 4 as my RB15. Where do you have him? Because this has been something that I have been mulling over a lot this week, and I think I need to be realistic about his situation.
Yeah. And
sorry, I'm kind of cutting you off just quickly, though. I think this team's going to draft a running back. I know they just brought in Samaje Perine, but I think they're a prime destination to piss people off and draft a running back. I really believe that.
I completely agree with everything you said. I am a massive believer, or I guess when I look into injuries, when you see a running back coming off an ACL tear, especially as severe as Javonte Williams, the next year is kind of a gap year. They have to go through it mentally and physically to kind of get over that hurdle of that injury. And with Javonte, I see that happening. And like with Dak said, to build on top of that, not only is he going to miss nearly a whole year with the team, but this team is also, in our opinion, going to be drafting another running back. And I'm not saying that Javonte Williams isn't talented enough to demand and carry, 15 to 18 touches per game, but we've seen the success with him also splitting the backfield with Michael Carter in college. So the Sean Payton come in and see this, hey, Javonte Williams did this before. He's probably going to benefit from this, from his ACL injury, and then them draft a running back. So I completely agree. He's in my tier 4. We both love Javonte Williams, but we also need to understand what that injury is and how severe that injury is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think right now for me, he is, unless he falls to me in a good spot, he's just a complete fade.
Sucks, man. It sucks so much. I can't tell you how much Javonte Williams I have in my leagues. It's ridiculous the amount of Javonte I have. And we talked a bit about J.K. Dobbins. I am more excited about him this year, but I would still have him slightly behind Javonte Williams. Another team that I have personally been discussing around potentially drafting a running back with Baltimore in 2019, the most rushing attempts per game, number 1. In 2020 or 2018, the year before, the same thing, number 1. 2019, they're top 3. Last year, they're top 6. I think that has to do with Lamar's injury. But the run game has been so important to the identity of this team. I would be really surprised if at minimum they don't draft someone in the 3rd round, like a Rashawn Johnson, or they grab a Sean Tucker, or, one of these guys who probably doesn't take away from, or probably doesn't take JK's role, but would take the Gus Edwards role. And we're like, finally, Gus Edwards is fading away. Well, no, there's a new Gus Edwards in town. So I like J.K. Dobbins. I would have him right here behind Javonte Williams. Where would you have him?
I have him in my tier 3. I'm a big J.K. Dobbins guy, and I think that's because he has gone through that mental hurdle. He's already passed what Javonte Williams is going through right now, and we saw that in the second half of the season where J.K. Dobbins kind of came back to his own. We saw him. He was still running funny, But he even said, "Yo,
It did not look like himself."
he was still saying, "Yo, give me a couple more weeks, give me until next year, right? And I'm going to become a right back." And he was running funny, and he was still getting over 120 yards a game. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like week 14 or something like that against the Lions. Over 100 yards. Let me try to pull it up actually. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins, he is a guy that I really believe in. We saw that in the production last year in the second half of the season. J.K. Dobbins, yeah, week 14, I was right, against actually Pittsburgh. He actually did it against Pittsburgh and Cleveland, week 14 and 15. 15 carries, week 14, 120 yards. That was essentially with one leg. You saw him running funny. Week 15, 13 carries, 125 yards, running funny. I think he comes back from it. Now, I agree. This identity is different now with Greg Roman gone and now a new offensive coordinator coming in from Georgia, right? So that's a little bit different. What
are they known for? Rotating backs.
Well, exactly. So what is that going to be?
I don't think that JK is going to be the player people want him to be for fantasy.
Potentially, but I still believe in JK. I have him in my tier 3. I feel really confident he's coming back. 24 years old, and I'm pretty sure it's a contract year as well for JK. So in these contract years, we saw with Josh Jacobs, we saw with a couple other guys. They kind of come up and show out here, and I don't think there's going to be any competition. I would be worried if they draft a significantly bigger running back. If they draft a Roscoe, if they draft a Charbonnet. But if I see a Tajay, I'm not necessarily as worried. If they draft I
think you should be. If it's
one of these smaller guys, a Zach Evans, I'm personally not worried. You know, some of those guys, a Devin A-Chain, I won't be worried about it. But maybe some people see that differently. Oof. That's how I'm seeing J.K. Dobbins.
We do see that differently. I think Tajay would worry me. Kendre, Abanikanda, Tank, Bigsby, Evans, Chase Brown. All ththose guys would worry me. Jamal Wood or Rashawn Johnson.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the bigger guys coming in because of the size and potentially that they want and need. Even though JK is a bigger back, but if they try to go bigger, then I would be more concerned.
Yeah, I would personally be shocked if they don't draft the running back, but that's just one man's opinion.
Yeah,
I don't think he should be in tier 3, but I'll give it to you and I'll fight battles elsewhere. And so you have JK ahead of Javonte then, is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. On to the next player, Joe Mixon. He would be pretty much at the in tier 5 for me. I think there's a high chance he gets cut, but there's also a chance that he stays. And if Joe Mixon's RB1 on the Bengals in day 1, then a lot of people will have gotten ridiculous values for him over this offseason. I remember in a mock draft we did couple weeks ago, or actually it was last week, I got him at the 11-8, which is ridiculous. I understand. Even if Joe Mixon gets cut, he's still a value where he is. That's the thing. Like, he doesn't have to come back and be the RB1 there. I still think he's a value even if he gets cut. Like, this is a really good running back who will be available, and he goes to probably a championship contender if that happens. And maybe, let's say the Bills don't draft someone. Okay, Joe Mixon gets cut because the Bengals drafted Bijan Robinson. Now Joe Mixon's in Buffalo, just as an example, right? And you want Joe Mixon at the price that you paid for him there in the 11th round. I'll have him here in tier 5, but obviously I don't know how long he's going to be in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I have him in my tier 4, one of my last guys in tier 4. I'm happy to put him in tier 5 just based off everything that's happening, you know, with the off-field issues. Him getting cut, I don't think there's somebody that I really want to argue for, but still 20
I don't either. I'm not going to use my ammunition here, so
yeah,
there's other places I'd rather use it. But
yeah, so I'm happy for him to be in tier 5. But yeah, I still believe in Joe. He had a decent year this past year. If I'm not mistaken, he finished RB10 amongst running backs, and he's continued. We saw him getting a little bit of the workload and targets in the air as well this past year. He also got eaten up with, you know, Samaje Perine coming in and taking some of that as well. But I agree. If he does go to another offense that is, you know, a contender, I am really excited for Joe Mixon.
Well, you're pretty much already getting the Joe Mixon's being cut discount. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Like at the moment, you're already getting that discount.
Agreed.
All right. We don't need to talk too much about Ken Walker, but just rather where you have him. I have him right behind Breece Hall.
I have him ahead of Breece Hall.
1.
He's actually my RB3.
Okay. Well, I gave you JT over Breece, so let's just leave
I'm
it
happy.
how it is then.
up there in tier 1 doesn't matter for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think tier 1, you can make a case for any of these guys being RB2 after someone. Miles Sanders.
Brother
I have
Miles.
Miles Sanders personally right ahead of Monty. Keep in mind, I have Swift at the end of this tier, but I would have Miles Sanders right ahead of David Montgomery here. Signs a 4-year deal in Carolina. Am I the only one who likes what Carolina's doing? I feel like every conversation that I'm seeing online on the Twitter sphere is people not liking what they're doing, but I'm looking at it thinking I like this. I can see how a young quarterback can step in and feel supported by this group. So
I completely agree. I love Miles Sanders. I have him right there as well. Actually, I have him higher. He's my first running back, second running back in this tier. Excuse me. So coming off a 4-year deal, they believe in him. They're going to invest in him. I don't see this team drafting a running back. If they are, there's probably be a complimentary guy some way, somehow. But yeah. I believe in Miles. I trust in Miles. I think we're going to see him go significantly higher as we get closer and closer to the season. He's currently RB20 according to the community so far as of today. And I can see him going higher. Right? I mean, right now, Derrick Henry, Swift, J.K. Dobbins are all above him. Dameon Pierce is above him. I think he can squeeze into like the top 16, top 17 type of running back here very soon. He's
currently my 18 right now.
Yeah, so I think he can definitely be up there. He's my 19 right now. So, and especially some of these guys don't get draft capital like the Charbonnets and all these other guys, which I am pretty sure that they will. He can definitely skyrocket.
Okay, I think we're about to talk about a redemption arc here, okay? 2 players last offseason, actually there was 3, that were my biggest like sells. It's not going to get better this, in 2022 for them. We're talking a year before right now. DJ Moore, which that was an interesting conversation. Okay. He was a sell for me. Deontay Johnson was coming off this ridiculous season that it wasn't going to be sustainable. He was a sell for me. And the last one was Najee Harris. I just thought with the identity that team had around Big Ben, it was dump off city, and that wasn't going to happen with a new quarterback. And I was off those 2 Steelers, Najee and Deontay. I think we could be seeing a redemption arc here because I think now Najee Harris is undervalued. He's being, in my opinion, too disrespected. My RB10 and the beginning of my tier 3, Najee Harris, still on the rookie deal. Friendly reminder, that's a 5-year deal if they take the 5th-year option. Yes, he's an older running back, but I still think that there's a lot left for Najee Harris. I think that injury, he was not himself the entire year. Rookie Najee Harris did not look like sophomore Najee Harris. So I think he's being massively disrespected. There's a lot of safety. I think if you can point to teams like they're not drafting a running back in the early rounds, it would be the Steelers. So I like Najee Harris here. They already have their complement in Jaylen Warren, so you know what that looks like. I think he's massively disrespected. I'll put him here at the top of my tier 3.
Yeah, I actually have him. I do agree, and I squeezed him into my tier 2 here. He's the very last running back in my tier 2. Not a guy I'm willing to argue for. I'm happy to have him in tier 3, but he is my RB10. I agree. He is a guy that's you see the arc, you see him being devalued right now, and you can go get him on the low. And I was trying to see what the Steelers have done so far offseason on the offensive line of move, and I can't figure it out. But I'm pretty sure. Let me know down in the comments below. Has this team invested in offensive line? I'm pretty sure they have, and that's going to improve because that was a really big thing this past year in 2022, and I know there's going to be a big movement probably going into the draft as well for this Steelers team. So, big investment in those guys. George Pickens taking a next step. Deontay Johnson, Kenny Pickett in year 2 with a better, hopefully, offensive line. So I'm really happy for Najee Harris.
Same. All right, Bijan Robinson's my RB1. He's your RB1.
Agreed.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Come on. Don't overthink it. That's why I said everyone in this tier 1 has a chance to be RB2 behind Bijan.
Yeah.
Rachaad White. I have Rachaad White actually right ahead of Joe Mixon. Now, I'm pretty sure we can save a lot of time and just say that you don't view Rachaad White the way that I do. With them moving on from Lenny, to me, I'm like, this is exactly what we were hoping for. He is kind of like Antonio Gibson, but he doesn't have the ridiculous hype that Antonio Gibson had when Antonio Gibson stepped in as the RB1. So I don't see a scenario in which the Bucks draft Bijan Robinson. I don't think it makes any sense for them to do that as a rebuilding team, clearly stepping into a rebuild. I think they want to be awful, and I don't see why they would draft Bijan like some people are saying they would. So I would put Rachaad White here. Where would you have him?
Yeah, he's in my tier 5 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't see him as that. He's right on the edge, honestly, for me. So I am not a massive believer in Rachaad White, but a guy that I can see going up and down if they do invest in a running back or don't invest in a running back.
Yeah, I would prefer Rachaad over Joe, Dalvin, and James, but we'll leave him here at the end.
That's fair.
Where do you have Ramondre Stevenson?
Ramondre Stevenson, I have him in my tier 3.
Okay.
So you have him in tier 4.
I do have him in tier 4. I do prefer Javonte over him. I do prefer J.K. Dobbins over him.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I would prefer. Maybe this feels better if we do it like this.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
That looks a little bit more sane for me.
Yeah, I'm happy. A little bit more sane. I guess we see that's the difference. I'm a big Ramondre believer. I'm also hesitant on this team getting another running back in the draft because we saw that this past year them drafting 4 other running backs. But at the same time, you saw them sign James Robinson. What does that mean? Is he even going to make the team? Do they draft again more running backs? I'm not necessarily sure, but at the same time, I'm really happy where I have Ramondre Stevenson here in tier 3. But we can keep him. Let's keep him there. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a difference of opinion.
It's a difference of opinion, man. There's a decade of information of how Bill Belichick has handled running backs, and it's never been to value guys like Ramondre Stevenson. That's all I'll say. But we agree to disagree. Saquon Barkley, I have in tier 2.
Yeah, give it a say, baby. Come on.
Right after Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very open to selling Saquon. I have him here, but I'm very open to selling him. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard. I would actually, personally, I would have Tony Pollard right after Austin Eckler here. I prefer Pollard over Dobbins, over Javonte, over Ramondre Stevenson. We might see this differently.
Yes. Wow. This is the biggest difference we have.
This is the biggest difference. And I understand Zeke's gone. I think that the Cowboys are likely to draft a running back. I wouldn't be surprised if that running back's Bijan Robinson or Zach Charbonnet or one of these really good backs. If that were to happen, I absolutely will look at bringing him back down my rankings. And I'm also bringing him as a sell high in one of our videos this week. So understand where I'm coming from here. He's my RB14 as things currently stand. And maybe that's not fair because I've been projecting certain running backs that will probably get backfield mates. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys are one of these teams who go out and get, let's say, Damian Harris. All right, Damian Harris is going to help Tony Pollard this year. I mean, I don't know that they want to spend big money on a running back in the draft. Maybe I'm wrong. I've talked about Bijan going there before. But right now, I think Tony Pollard, similar to Josh Jacobs, if you look at all analytics last year, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL. And now the role might slightly change, but this is where I would have him here. Where do you have him?
I actually have him in my tier 5, and that's because I am projecting this team highly investing in a running back, whether that's Bijan, a Gibbs. It can even be some of these other guys in free agencies, or that's going to be dropped. Like, what if it's Joe, right? What if it's a Dalvin if they move on from them, from those players? So I can see your perspective, but I guess I am projecting him on the lower end of like, okay, he can probably do what he did this past year, but if you have a younger guy that is going to be highly superior than what Zeke was this past year, clearly because he was on the massive decline. So I just have him in my tier 5. That's what I'm saying. This is the big difference here.
Yeah. Dang. I mean, over 1,300 all-purpose yards, not even being the guy.
I am not a anti-Tony
12
Pollard.
touchdowns.
I am Jerry's going to make a splash, and that's going to be Bijan. That's going to be a Jahmyr Gibbs. That's going to be whoever is going to be on the free agent or be cut from this team.
No free agent to make a splash, my guy.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Whoever's going to be cut from those teams, whether it's Joe, Dalvin, any of those guys, I can see. Right.
Okay.
So
why don't we meet in the middle then here? I'll bring Tony Pollard down to tier 4 and Ramondre Stevenson down to tier 4.
Sure.
Why don't we meet in the middle there?
Yeah.
Does that seem fair?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Do you have any argument against that? Because I would have Pollard in tier 3.
No,
I would have Ramondre in tier 4.
In
You don't have Pollard in tier 3.
Yeah, I don't have Pollard in that's what I'm happy to put him in tier 4. It doesn't really matter where personally. I have him in tier 5. You have him in tier 3. So I'm happy to put him in the middle.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Travis Etienne, I would also put in this tier 1 at the back end. I don't think his game has been fully unleashed yet, and I'm excited about that offense and how it's ascending. Nick Chubb, I've got Nick Chubb. Actually, sorry, you said you agree with Travis, right?
Yes, yes, Etienne tier 1.
I would have Nick Chubb in tier 3 right after Austin Eckler.
Agreed. I have him in tier 3 as well.
Oh my gosh, well, let me put him there. Okay, cool. In a world of running back uncertainty, Nick Chubb to me is a certainty with the amount of work that he's going to get each year if he stays healthy.
Yeah, especially with
okay,
Deshaun.
And then the last player that I would have ranked, and we'll talk if you have any other players ranked, would be Zach Charbonnet. And I've been very high on Charbonnet. Not only like versus yourself, but also the rest of the community. When I'm looking at rankings, I'm thinking to myself, am I overvaluing this player? But maybe it makes more sense when people understand that I, in my rookie rankings, have Charbonnet and Jahmyr Gibbs ranked very similarly. I don't think that they should be valued all that differently. I do have Zach Charbonnet right behind Najee Harris in my tier 3. He's my RB11 right now. And if he gets drafted in the second round anywhere, he will stay as my RB11. Where do you have him ranked?
Yeah, I have him in tier 3 as well. He's in that middle of the mix there. I am excited for Zach Charbonnet. I am also very scared to see where this draft capital is going to be because from everything that we're hearing, I feel like no one likes players in this draft, it feels like. So I'm skeptical on Charbonnet,
really? What have you heard negative stuff about Charbonnet?
No, not on Charbonnet specifically. I'm hearing that a lot of teams, even if Charbonnet is there, they're happy to wait until the third round if he does fall. Doesn't mean that he is not going to land in a good team. It's just, okay, it wasn't the draft capital we probably expected. I think we're going to see that a lot with a lot of these players that we're hoping for in every position, not just in running back room. I think in every position, and maybe we have to reassess. Outside of Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, but yeah, I'm happy to have him in tier 3. I have him in tier 3 as well. He's there, so I like Zach Charbonnet. He's actually gone above my ranking, above Sean Tucker, and we'll talk about him as well here soon because he's one of the guys that he's not there. But yeah, Zach Charbonnet tier 3.
Okay, then let's talk about Sean Tucker. He's my RB30 right now. Where do you have him? I don't have him anywhere near this tier 5. What I will say is the combine. The virtual combine. I also want to state that I also ran a 4.33 yesterday at the park. I set up a tripod with my phone.
Do you have videos though?
It was officially a 4.33. Yeah, I'll put the videos up later. So, in case anyone's interested in myself in the NFL, I also benched 400 pounds. So that's all on film. In case anyone's curious, I did it myself, and I worked out, and then I decided not to work out when there was an official opportunity to work out with my school. So if anyone's interested in me, let me know. I love Sean Tucker. But what the hell? Why do that workout and then not do your pro day? I don't get it.
I'm not. Well, according to that pro day, that workout was months ago. And he just released that. So he's clearly dealing with something. He said he is waiting to get cleared from something according to his reports on Twitter. I have Sean Tucker in my tier. I have two other players I do want to talk about. But I have Sean Tucker in my tier 5. I still believe in him, but at the same time, everything that's happening is not looking good. So I am not advocating for Sean Tucker. I am not saying anything for Sean Tucker, just to let you guys know I am a believer in Sean Tucker. But I'm happy to have him on this list or not have him on this list. Okay. That's how I'm feeling. There is one more player that I would like to advocate for that is not here.
Okay.
On this list, and I feel really confident about this, and this is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, I believe, is a guy that is going to be taking a big next step. Not a big next step. He's been doing what he's been doing
at this point.
Right, yeah, he's been doing what he's been doing, right? He finished RB9 this past year. If Aaron Rodgers really does leave, they might lean on the run game a little bit more with Aaron Jones and Jordan Love, right? Because we haven't seen Jordan Love he hasn't played a full season ever, right? Barely played a full game. He played a handful of games, a full game, but I like Aaron Jones. I believe he can be a league winner, especially in a win now team. I did bring in a win now video, and Aaron Jones was on that list. So I like everything that Aaron Jones is going to be for this team, whether that's with Aaron Rodgers or with Jordan Love. So I think he should be an honorable mention on this list, whether you have him in the top 24 or not.
Sure, we can put him there. No worries at all. I wouldn't have him there, but we see that player differently, and that's okay. I like personally, I would probably have Derrick Henry over him if we were to add someone, but
yeah, Derrick Henry is nice as well. So I mean, so many guys we can really talk about. I mean,
yeah, we tried to keep it pretty strict to the top 24. So there'll be some names that probably could have made it that didn't, but yeah, that is it. I think big areas that we disagree on would be DeAndre Swift. I personally I would prefer DeAndre Swift. I would prefer Sanders and Montgomery over DeAndre Swift. Tony Pollard would be a name that we would disagree. I know you would put him in tier 5. So you prefer Dameon Pierce over Tony Pollard is what you're saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Ramondre Stevenson as well is another name that we would slightly disagree on, but tier 1 and 2 was pretty seamless. So
yeah,
it's just those guys after those.
It's just those guys.
Those
I mean,
2 tiers.
We're gonna figure out what's really gonna happen. Who's gonna get the draft capital? Who's going to have a new running back mate, and who is going to truly take on this backfield with whether that is Tony Pollard. Like imagine they invest in Miles Sanders, 4-year contract, and they go out and get another running back that could eat into his workload. Like what the heck, right? Like any of those things can happen. So let's wait and see.
That's true. Do us a favor, guys. Drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And again, we want you to comment down below. Do you like this format where we go player by player? We really want to know if you prefer tier by tier or player by player. I have my preference. Badaki has his preference, but we want to hear your comments and your opinions down below. So thanks for the love. Thanks for the support. And we will see you guys in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.